Welcome to the Good Karma Sport Fishing Podcast. I'm your host, Captain Ryan Van Fleet. Thanks for tuning in. Now, over the next couple weeks, I'm going to be revisiting my first 8 to 10 podcasts because they were a little rough around the edges. They were rough. Now, I've been doing the podcast it's been almost 2 years now. I want to be honest with you guys. I honestly didn't enjoy doing these podcasts. I didn't enjoy them at all, because it just wasn't me, and I just felt very, very uncomfortable, so I had to sit down, write scripts, force myself to do it. I was just getting back into the social media after being out for a couple years, and I was just uncomfortable with it, to be honest with you, and I just didn't want to share anything with anybody, so because of all the hard work I had put in. And then I started getting a few emails from people saying, thank you, you've really helped me. And then that gave me a little bit of encouragement, so I kept going with it. So here I am today. So over the next couple of weeks, I'm going to be revisiting some of the rougher podcasts that I put out and redoing them a little bit and giving you guys some new information. Instagram user Yamalu, he just started listening to my podcasts, and we met up through a couple podcasts that I put out. He said, hey man, thanks for putting out some of the tips, and your first 8 to 9 podcasts were pretty rough. I appreciated the honesty, to be honest with you. I really did. And they were rough, man. They were horrible. I sat down. You know how long it took me to do one podcast? Over 6 hours. Over 6 hours, sometimes 8 hours into the next day to do like a 5-minute podcast, because I just was very uncomfortable with it. I had to sit down, write scripts, and oh my God. And then I would get messages from my buddies, and it's like, yeah, man, did you script your podcast? And I was like, yeah, man, I don't know how else to do it. So I got some encouragement from a couple of my friends that I really am close to, and it's just, the guys that supported me during my social media hiatus after Jimmy Jigs. I had the Jimmy Jigs thing, it was really bizarre, and after all that, I took that a couple years off, and I pivoted, and I really worked on becoming a better fisherman, and I just went into incognito. But I had met some great guys through Jimmy Jigs, and they kind of stuck around, and I developed great friendships with them. And those guys, they gave me some harsh feedback about my podcasts, and I was like, I was like, but they were right. They sucked. But the content was there, but I just didn't know how to communicate it. So anyways, so I appreciate that. I appreciate the feedback that I got about the earlier podcast, because it's like with fishing, I really worked at just becoming more comfortable with how I do things, and eventually the podcasting now is, for me, it's very easy. So, and if I don't really have anything to talk about, I just don't talk about it. So I want to thank you guys for joining up to the Facebook group and filling out the Google document survey about what you guys want to hear. So I am going to be taking the next couple of weeks and really looking at that and developing a podcast schedule based on some of the input that I've received as far as what you guys want to hear. Now, some of the things when the technical stuff gets a little tough with podcasting, and what I've learned, so I've got to approach that a little differently. But I will be going back and looking at Downrigger stuff. I'll be looking at weather. I'll be looking at those first few podcasts up until probably episode 15. So as far as the fishing goes over the next few weeks, I'm really just going to be doing a lot of dolphin trolling and some wahoo trolling. I won't be doing a lot of bottom fishing. If I do, it'll just be occasionally, because this is my time to work through some of my trolling gear and get me ready for the month of May. With that being said, I get a lot of questions about the Seakeeper and how it handles versus the 23 versus the 39. I fished on the Sea Hunter, I believe it was Thursday. I fished on the Sea Hunter. So I fished on the 39 Sea Hunter for a private client. I managed the boat for him. I love that boat. It's extremely fast. It gets you from point A to point B. But, guys, I can tell you from experience that it's awesome. It's an awesome ride. It's fun to get out there and get there fishing quickly, but it rolls. Okay, so when you're looking to buy a big boat doesn't stop the waves, guys. Okay, but it does get you from point A to point B, and there is a lot of room in it. But you still rock and roll. You can get out there in the rough stuff, but you still got to be able to dial in. You still got to be able to keep your rods from bouncing up and down. And one thing I notice is that fishing on my 23 with a Seakeeper versus the 39 is that I get a lot more tangles on the 39, and the bites can be a little different because you're rolling around a lot, and the boat doesn't adjust in the current like it does with mine. So it's a huge difference now fishing on a 39 versus fishing on my 23 with the Seakeeper. You can fish in a lot more stuff, okay? But what I've seen this week, or I think not this week, but the week prior, I think it was last Friday. The sea conditions we had a confused sea, so the seas were coming at us from every direction. So it was very challenging getting the boat dialed in that stuff. But it was easy to move from spot to spot when spots weren't producing. So in other words, I can get from point A to point B quickly because the thing can blast through about anything, and you don't get the wave slap that you do running from point A to point B. But it doesn't fish as well as the 23 when you get there, because the 23 with the Seakeeper takes out the confused seas. So in other words, it fishes stabilized, and I'm able to still make the drifts with the current versus fishing on the 39. Now on the 39, when I'm setting a drift up in 300 feet or 200 feet or 150 feet in a confused sea, and you're taking a wave from the side, a 3-footer, you're still getting pushed from one side to the next, and the boat is being shifted. So you're constantly having to readjust with the joystick to try to keep yourself in line with your drift to hit it right on the mark. So, but with the 23, with the Seakeeper, you don't have that because you don't get the hull slap doesn't move the boat very much. So you're pretty much keeping on your drift, and your rods aren't bouncing all over the place. So pretty much you're just going up and down. But in a confused sea, your rods are going everywhere, and your weights are getting bounced around, and you're tangling a lot. So like I mentioned that earlier. So there is a huge difference. Good karma. And I actually felt guilty taking out the 39 the other day and not taking my boat. But I already had the boat loaded and ready to go, and then my client called, and he had a last-minute work thing come up to where he couldn't make it. So I need to run the boat, because if you don't run the boat, things tend to happen with engines. So you always gotta. So if you haven't been getting your boats out, even if you just even if you just flush the engine, start it up, get all the electronics fired up, and then do what you can as far as maintenance goes. So give your boat some love. Don't let it sit there in your parking lot if you trailer your boat, and keep giving it love. I'm always going down and putting CRC spray on outlets, on my anchor, on my windlass anchor. So I'm always trying to do something every day if I can, even if it takes like 5 minutes. So that way it does help. And that includes starting the engines. Even if I haven't been fishing as much, but I still go down and I still start the engines, and I still flush the engines from time to time. Even when they sit there, I'll still go back and flush them. So I do my best to maintain my boat the best I can, and that's what I recommend you guys do. And I'm sure a lot of you guys are doing this, but I always have to put that out there. And also too, guys, back to the Seakeeper. I'm not sponsored by them, so just FYI, I just enjoy having one, and I'm very lucky. So, like I said, I had been saving my money for several years to buy a new boat, and I decided to put that money towards my Seakeeper. That's the story. So I had a lot of it's fun. It was fun to read some of the comments. I remember when I got the Seakeeper about the Seakeeper costing more than my boat, and oh my god, the haters came out in full effect. I just loved it. Melinda and I sat back and we just laughed about it, and I'm like, yep. So all I can say is that it was worth it, and I just get a good laugh at the hater comments that I've seen. So anyways, that was the fishing I had last Friday on the 39, and the fishing was kind of slow, man. It was kind of slow. I couldn't get dialed in. We had some bites. They wouldn't stay connected. Boat was bouncing all over the place. It's tough. It was tough. So we set up to do some yellowtail fishing in the water. We got there too late because the yellowtail had been biting really early in the morning. And a lot of people are yellowtail fishing now and reef fishing because, people are they're mostly locals. And people are looking to fill their freezers with snapper right now because they're just tired of eating pizza and stuff. So when they're coming down, it's just a lot of anchor fishing. And this time of year, we're supposed to be seeing a good yellowtail spawn. And, to be honest with you, what I've been seeing, it hasn't been rock solid yet. I mean, they're there. But I look at what the commercial guys are doing. The commercial guys are catching 200 pounds, and compared to what I've seen in the past, I'm looking for the commercial guys are catching. They should be catching 500 pounds. Get better here with the new moon coming up. It's going to be a really good spawn this year. I just got a really good feeling about it, and I feel that I prepared my listeners for this year's spawn with some great tips to where you guys are going to be able to catch some monster flags. So when you're catching those monster flags this season, with some of the tips I've shared with you guys, I would really appreciate a shout out and to put a review on the iTunes for me. So iTunes for the Good Karma Sport Fishing Podcast. Give me a nice review. And that's what I'll consider payment for my podcasts. So a lot of the stuff I shared with you guys are stuff that you'd have to pay big bucks for in seminars that I buried along the way. Those little bitty nuggets have turned a lot of people that are listening to this podcast into some really good wahoo fishermen because I've seen the pictures of the baits that they sent me and thanking me and stuff, and I appreciate that. But like I said, now I'm asking for those guys that have been successful, have caught some really big fish because I've seen them. I've seen you guys send me the direct message thanking me. But now I'm asking you to share the podcast with a friend. Help a friend out, okay? That's good karma. And for you guys to write a review for me, a nice review on iTunes, I would really appreciate that, okay? So that's all I'm asking as payment. So like I said in the beginning of the podcast, over the next few weeks, I'm going to be going back and looking at previous episodes, and I'm going to be looking at your Google document surveys that you filled out when you joined the Good Karma Sport Fishing Facebook group. So if you want to get involved with that group, it's a private group on Facebook. That is where I'm going to be putting the detailed fishing reports because now if you go into the group, you'll see what kind of detail you're getting. You're getting where the edge is at as far as if there's a stabilized edge, what time of day the fish are biting, because the fish bite at certain times of the day, not just all the time. So there was a pattern last weekend, a big pattern with dolphin. So when you're in the group, you're going to see what type of patterns the fish are biting in, and I'm also going to be posting some videos in there as well as far as some short tips. Now, I'm going back and reworking a lot of videos right now that I had put on Instagram, so I removed them. Some of them are the bait strip videos. Some are the Downrigger videos because I've changed things around from the very beginning. So I don't want to put that stuff out there right now because I have changed a lot of stuff. And I changed it for this past wahoo fishing season. Now, remember, the podcast that I started podcasting 2 years ago, I went into this wahoo season different, okay, as far as how I run my downriggers. Now, I'm going to leave you with this with downriggers. So, downriggers, I run Old Salties number 8 planers, okay? And I run them on release clips with rubber bands, and I'll like put this out there later so you guys will see this in a future video. But the big reason why I run downriggers is I don't want to deal with weeds. So I hear talk about guys, I know a lot of guys, they run electrics down here because they don't want to clean weeds, okay? So honestly, I'm not going to spend $5,000 to $6,000 for an LP reel, okay? Because I don't swordfish. Now, if I get into sword fishing, it might be worth that investment. And I've tried running planers from Tanacon Bulls and Daiwa, like 9,000s, and I run number 8 Old Salties, and man, they pull hard on those electrics. And my experience with those electrics is, as much as I fish, I don't want to put those things in the shop because they're expensive, and those things are really touchy. Nobody talks about that. Okay, I've had those things, those bearings, I've just had a lot of stuff go wrong with those electrics, and I know a lot of kingfishermen pull their little planers with like those number 4s and number 2s, but I want my number 8 planers gets the bait down to where the fish are at, okay? And I pull them off downriggers because there's just a lot of weeds, and I want the client to be able to fight the fish free of the planer and enjoy the fight. That's what I do. That's my program. Now, not saying that next year I might add a couple of inline planers just because, but I doubt it. I really don't, because I'm really fast with the downrigger stuff, and I really don't want to have to like reinvent the wheel, to be honest with you. So the big thing is with the planers is the wire cuts the weeds, okay? We have a lot of weeds down here in the Keys, a lot. We have we have a lot of current. You're dealing with the reef, you get a lot of sargassum weed, and that's one of the big reasons why I do that. And the wire cuts the weeds, okay? And I'm able to run those baits without getting weeded up. And I don't have to manually crank in and clear weeds. You know, that sucks, pulling in planers manually and cleaning weeds. It sucks. So that was one of the big reasons why I put those downriggers in play in the first place, because I fished alone and it was taking me a ton of time to clean weeds. I run 8s because 8s are able to get me down to the depths where I need to be. I run the 8s between 10 and 11 miles an hour. I don't have any problem. My downriggers are set up. They were set up by my mechanics to make sure they don't tear off. So I really spent a lot of time and a lot of money getting those downriggers set to where they could run. Now my biggest, they're not perfect, okay, but they work for me, okay? And I do break them. I do bust them. I probably go through every 2 years. I go through, like, every 2 years I spend probably about $500 on a new downrigger. But I've gotten a lot better at figuring out what I need to do maintenance-wise to make sure they don't break. Now, that's another thing that's taken me a few years to do. Probably taken me about a good 3 years to figure out. And my mechanics help me with the rebuilds. And every year now I rebuild the downriggers. And now I've got downriggers that I've had for 3 years, and I rebuild them. So I don't rebuild them. I have my mechanics do it because they're really good at it. And I would rather pay those guys and to build them right. And honestly, I don't have time to sit down and do that stuff. But my mechanics are really good at doing it. They get the right parts. We upgrade parts. And there's just a lot to the downrigger fishing, guys, more than what I have talked about. But I will address it here in the near future, but not today and not anytime this week, but here soon, because I'm working on some videos and stuff. But I run those downriggers because it really helps with weeds. I push the button, the planers come up, I take the rubber bands off, I reel in the rod. It just is really quick. When the fish hits, he breaks the rubber band. I push the electric downrigger button, and the planers come up without me having to touch the planer. And that's what I do. Now, I'm also able to run my teasers off there. I just got one of my other downriggers in play and one of the other outlets fixed, which I didn't have time to do this fall because I was running a flat, and I wish I'd got it done, but I didn't. I probably would have caught 10 times more wahoo, and I caught a lot of wahoo this year because I was able to get those downriggers dialed into where I want them. So, but I only ran one, okay, because my other one wasn't working, and I just didn't I don't know, it's like I had so much other shit going on that I just, for some reason, I didn't get the other outlet fixed this year, and I always ran a flat. Now, I caught a lot of fish on that flat, but there were days when I'm like, oh shit, I needed to get another bait down, and I need to get it out further. And I probably would have capitalized more. But I didn't. I didn't. I don't know. Don't ask me. It's just some of the things, like, I'm not perfect. Melinda had to sit here and tell me, like, don't be so hard on yourself this morning. Because I'm like, I go back and I look at this shit, and I'm like, I could have, like, done it better. But now I got the other downrigger fixed because I'm really running. This time of year, I start putting away the downriggers as far as wahoo fishing goes. I'll probably leave them because there's going to be probably a big blackfin run here over the next few weeks, probably through the May moon, where we'll start seeing some really big blackfin tunas pushing through the Keys. I caught a really nice yellowfin. I usually catch 1 or 2 yellowfins this time of year on the downriggers. So now I also like to run my downriggers for early season dolphin fishing, because the dolphins sometimes tend to be staged down a little deeper. And when I'm running weed lines, tight weed lines, I like to put down a planer because I can raise the dolphin up into the spread that way. So what happens is that when if you're confident there's fish there, but you're not getting a bite on the surface, those fish may be staged down a little bit. And one thing, guys, is that when you're looking for a really big bull dolphin, you need to get a bait down deep, because what happens is those fish are usually hanging out below the schools of below those schools of those female cows. So that's something that you guys need to think about. If you're not getting a bite, you need to, or if you're on a piece of debris and you're marking, then get that downrigger down really quick. And you guys can do it really quick. You just have to be ready, or you can do an inline planer, or however you guys want to do that. But I'll talk about that here in the future. So I'm getting a lot, the reason why I'm talking about this is that I've got a lot of questions about the downrigger. I will address them, but guys, one of the biggest reasons I run them is because of weeds. That's one of the biggest reasons. And they cut the weeds, and it saves me a ton of time, and I can run them really fast. So that's kind of it. Especially in the winter. So, but anyways, that's something for you guys to look forward to here in the future. And along with that, I'll be going back through my old podcasts and all that good stuff. So, guys, I got to wrap it up today. I got a busy day. Got some stuff I got to get done here this morning before noon. Remember to sign up for my private Facebook group, the Good Karma Sport Fishing Podcast. Just do a search through Facebook. Fill out the rules. Put in your email. That would be great and nice and helpful. And follow me on Instagram, because I will be, I'm posting up some stuff on there. I give you some little teasers of what's happening with the fishing. I don't show you all of it because I'm going to be saving some of that for the Facebook group, so I'll be breaking it up. So my Instagram account is Good Karma Sport Fishing _FL Keys. And make sure you check out my website for updates, www.goodkarmasportfishing.com. And that's it for today. Gotta go. Remember, anytime you're fishing, it's all good. And remember this little bit here, okay? Remember to leave the small fish for the boat behind you. Have a good one, guys, and thanks for tuning in.